Shalom Talmidim. Here's a little reflection on the second verse in the Aaronic blessing, or the priestly blessing, from Numbers 26. Excuse me, Numbers 6, verse 25. The verse says, Ya'er Adonai panav elecha vihunecha. Ya'er is actually a word that's also used in the Genesis story, Genesis 1, the creation story, that the big lamps, the big luminaries, celestial luminaries, give light to the earth. They shine. They shine on the earth. That's part of their function. And here, it's this beautiful passage of God's face actually shining or giving light to the one being blessed. And so the JPS translates it, deal kindly, I believe. The Lord deal kindly. But literally it means the Lord's face shine towards you. Which to me is just a compelling image of God's face radiating with love towards the believer, towards the people of God. That here the priest is invoking God's love to radiate towards the people. My mother-in-law, my wife Mariah, her mom, often will send us notes. She's a prolific note writer, and she'll send us notes sometimes that will have either one or of two things, sometimes both. Sometimes she'll fill the letter, either the card or the envelope, with all kinds of confetti, whether it's bright and shiny hearts or stars or balloons or whatever the occasion might be. Generally hearts, but sometimes other things. Or she may say in her card, sending you love rays from Flint. She lives in Flint, Michigan. And both of those things together are just really endearing things that she does. But particularly this language of sending love rays. I think, in a sense, that's what the priest is inviting or requesting or beseeching God to do to the believer. To send them love rays from his face, that his face might actually glow, radiate, and shine with love towards the believer. You know how you can look at someone's face sometimes, and you can see in their face whether or not they're caring for you in the moment, or whether or not they're excited to be in your presence, or whether or not they're filled with love, or filled with positive energy towards you. Well, the priestly blessing is asking God to look with love and favor on the believer. Now, that's the second word. Vihunecha is to be gracious to you, but this idea of being gracious is another way of understanding that is to find favor. Often, that word, hanan, is connected with the eyes, to find favor in someone's eyes. And so here, God's face is shining towards the believer, and the believer is finding favor in God's eyes, which are shining right towards the believer with love. And so it's just, on the one hand, a beautiful image that's created, a compelling image, but on the other hand, it's another way of describing God's relationship with God's people in a way that is like unto the first verse of God blessing and filling with power and protecting, blessing in the first part of the first verse, and God's face shining are in some ways related, and God shamaring, or protecting, and here us finding favor in God's eyes, or God being gracious to us, are somewhat related as well. So there's a kind of parallel structure to these verses, and each moving along similar tracks, but in kind of articulating different realities. And so this second verse is really articulating a warmth, an energy, a love, an excitement, another kind of empowerment that is really a joy. I mean, to have someone's face be lit towards you, lit when they see you. I can imagine a scene from my own life from many years ago when my wife and I, my present wife and I, were dating. We were apart for several months. Very early on in our dating relationship, although we'd been friends for a long time, and it was kind of like with us, when we started dating, it was just a matter of time. We basically said we want to marry each other at the beginning, and 6 months later we were engaged, and then 6 months later we were married. But of that 6 months of our dating, we were apart for almost 4. And so my wife was in New Mexico doing her student teaching, and I was in Grand Rapids working at a church and doing some other things. And my parents and I drove down to New Mexico to pick her up when her semester ended. And the first time that we saw each other, I can still remember it as if it happened in this moment. But it was at night, and she came out of the dorm that she was in, and I was sort of coming towards her, and I saw her face for the first time. And we didn't have Skype at this point. This was over 10 years ago. There was no Skype. So I hadn't seen her face in months. And the first time I saw her face, and I'm sure the first time she saw my face, they were lit, literally lit, towards each other. So we were so excited to see each other. And I imagine that that's how the priest is asking God to look at the one receiving the blessing. To look in a way that his face just lights up, his eyebrows rise, he gets little wrinkle lines on his forehead, he gets smile lines on his eyes, right? His face is just lit. I love you, is what God is saying here in this second part of the blessing.